James, my final question, and I've been meaning to ask you this question but not getting the opportunity. What precisely happened with the Sidian transaction?
The Sidian transaction, as we announced, we signed a share purchase agreement. The nature of share purchase agreements have a long stop date. A long stop date is a date on which really the agreement lapses. Yeah. So the agreement lapses by performance, where the parties perform and meet their obligations, or can lapse just once a long stop date lapse. So it's not an indefinite agreement, and this particular agreement had a long stop date of December 2022. We extended it to January with expectation of a completion. And the extension has to be by mutual consent of both parties. And we were still not able to complete. And we opted not to extend it further. The reason we opted not to extend it further is because companies are living organisms. And living organisms and entities dislike being in an uncertain environment. And it's not fair to subject the staff of that entity, the customers of that entity, to a prolonged uncertainty. We signed this agreement, announced it in June, actually maybe earlier, around April, May, June. So the staff had been subject to a prolonged period of uncertainty, and that was hurting the business. And so given that we did not have visibility as to when we were going to complete, it was not feasible to continue with the transaction. And as members of the board of that company, you have a fiduciary responsibility to act in the best interest of that entity, not in Centum's best interest or the buyer's best interest. You must act in Sidian's best interest. And it was no longer in Sidian's best interest to extend that agreement any further.
And I'd imagine now, given what you've just spoken to quite eloquently about the state of the market and where valuations are, it is now nowhere near the horizon to exit.
Our options are always open. So it depends, yeah? It depends on what happens. But it's a great asset. So our obligation is to preserve and create value with all our assets. So we continue to do that, and it continues to do well. It continues to grow despite the challenging conditions. But also there have been some opportunities with the removal, or the approval of the risk-based lending. They are working on a number of interesting products that they are taking to market to the regulator for approval. They are probably on the tail end of approval. And so you might see some interesting announcements from that end soon. It may mean when or if we do a transaction, hopefully it will be at a better valuation.